The best product leaders aren't just product managers. They are part psychologists, part economists, part strategists. They see the world through a lens of first principles. But how do you move from theory to practice? How do you stop being a victim of chaos and start being the architect of your own outcomes? This is the Sovereign PM, the podcast that deconstructs the ideas of product strategist Schwarzkopf to give you a more powerful way to think and lead. It's time to own your outcomes. Let's begin.
We've all felt it, right? That friction in product leadership, you have these strategies, they work brilliantly, explosive growth, and then they just sputter out.
Yeah, they just seem to lose their magic somehow.
Exactly. Or you have these incredible teams, totally aligned, full of vision, and slowly, somehow, they drift into cynicism, internal battles.
And the easy answers, oh, the market changed or the team's just tired, they never really feel sufficient, do they?
Not at all. They feel shallow. So what if? What if it's not chaos? What if these product life cycles, they aren't random fluctuations, but actually follow a kind of predictable rhythm, maybe something almost like historical cycles?
Well, that's the core idea we're really dipping into today. This isn't just, observing how products evolve. We're looking at applying a really powerful mental model, Strauss and Howe's fourth turning theory.
Right, the generational cycles idea.
Exactly. Applying those insights directly to the strategic landscape of product. The argument is that this framework, it can give you a whole new operating system as a product leader, something that moves you past just reactive execution.
Towards what you'd call sovereignty, right? Real control over strategic choices.
Precisely. That's the goal.
So our mission here really is to equip you with the kind of, let's say, strategic clarity to see which turning, which season your product is actually in. It's about stopping that feeling of constantly swimming upstream.
Yeah, fighting against a current you can't even see.
And instead, applying the right strategy, the right protocol at the right time. Because if you can anticipate the tensions, the shifts in the team, the opportunities others miss, well, that's the game changer.
It's moving beyond the day-to-day sprint planning. It's about understanding the deeper forces, the praxeology of it all, the underlying logic of human action shaping markets and teams.
Seeing the faint signals and all the noise.
Yeah.
Understanding their systemic impact on your product's operating layer.
Okay, so let's just quickly ground ourselves in that Strauss and Howe theory. The basic idea is that history, particularly Western history, seems to move in these recurring cycles. Each cycle has 4 distinct phases, or turnings, or seasons, if you like.
Spring, summer, autumn, winter, basically.
Right. And each turning has its own distinct societal mood, its own set of challenges, and that drives a certain set of dominant behaviors across the board, institutions, individuals, everything.
It's not like a rigid prophecy, though. It's more like a pattern recognition system for collective behavior on a macro level.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how this isn't just some historical curiosity. You look at, say, a societal high, think post-World War II America. Huge sense of unity, building institutions, shared purpose.
Doesn't that sound exactly like a product's initial launch phase? That singular vision, the team galvanized, early adopters totally captivated.
It really does. Or think about a crisis turning, like the Great Depression or World War II itself. It demands radical change, shedding old ways of thinking.
Which is very much like a mature product facing, an existential threat.
Disruption.
Irrelevance.
Precisely. So it's more than just a metaphor. It's arguably a stunningly accurate mental model for understanding your product's entire life cycle, from the very beginning right through to decline or maybe reinvention.
And the power then is shifting from just watching things happen to your product to actually anticipating them.
Yes. If you can recognize the phase the turning your product is in, you can apply the right strategic protocol. You stop firefighting reactively.
And start leading with foresight, leading proactively.
That's the core of it. If you internalize these patterns, you're not blindsided when the mood in the team shifts, or when consensus starts to fray, or when last year's killer strategy suddenly stops working.
You can prepare. You can adjust your approach intentionally.
You can lead your product and your team through these predictable phases deliberately instead of just, constantly battling the current. And that deep understanding, that ability to operate ahead of the curve, that's what we mean by achieving real sovereignty in product leadership.
It turns what feels random into something understandable, manageable. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the first turning, the high of launch and growth.
The springtime. That exhilarating post-launch phase, everything feels new, bursting with potential, and there's this incredible clarity of purpose.
The founding vision is just crystal clear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Often because the enemy, the old way you're disrupting, is so obvious, so well-defined.
Think about early Slack. Their enemy wasn't just another chat app, it was email for internal comms. The mission was transformation, right? Make email obsolete with channels. There was zero ambiguity.
Yeah, absolutely zero.
And the mood, you feel it, it's unmistakable. Pure optimism, infectious energy, this collective belief, sometimes almost evangelical, that you are genuinely changing the world.
The whole team is united. Engineering, sales, marketing, everyone's pulling in exactly the same direction.
And this is where the core institution of your product gets built. It's founded on that early trust, those first crucial wins. There's this unshakable belief system about what the product is and what problem it solves.
This establishes the product as protocol, right? Its fundamental rules, its non-negotiable.
Exactly. And its primary signaling layer to the market, what it shouts about its core value. It's making one strong, singular statement.
So, okay, if you're the sovereign PM navigating this first turning, your mandate sounds incredibly focused. Is it really just about that singular focus? Or are there edge cases? How do you protect that vision so ruthlessly?
Your job essentially is protector of the vision, full stop. Your only real goal is perfecting that primary use case for your core early adopters. This is absolutely not the time for, spreading thin, chasing adjacent opportunities, or saying yes to every feature request that pops up.
Even if it comes from a big name customer.
Even then, you're establishing the foundational product as protocol. It has to deliver its singular promise flawlessly, predictably. This requires what the source calls a radical asymmetry of focus.
Asymmetry, meaning like overwhelmingly disproportionate resources on that one core thing.
Precisely. A massive concentration on perfecting that core experience and saying a clear strategic no to almost everything else. Any deviation right now just introduces fragility you cannot afford.
Which leads directly to that idea of ruthless editing, saying no relentlessly.
Yes. Every distraction, no matter how well-intentioned or seemingly lucrative, it's a direct threat to the core mission at this stage. It's about keeping that signaling layer absolutely pristine.
Ensuring what the product is remains uncomplicated, undeniable.
You're building for trust, for stability. You're onboarding users into something reliable, consistent, singular, not something sprawling and confusing. That focus creates a powerful gravity for those early adopters.
Okay, so let's make this concrete. How does this ruthless editing play out? The classic example given is SSO, single sign-on. Your young B2B product, first turning, finding its feet. An early, important customer asks for SSO.
Right. And for most teams, especially if they're hungry for validation, hungry for revenue, that sounds like a request you bend over backwards for, right? Keep the customer happy, maybe unlock a bigger contract.
The pressure is immediate. Sales is banging down your door.
But from a sovereign PM perspective, in this phase, you have to reframe that request completely. The source calls it explicitly a massive distraction.
Why? Because it's complex.
It's complex institutional overhead, yes. But more than that, it's an investment serving one customer's specific needs that immediately pulls critical resources, engineering time, product focus away from perfecting the core experience for everyone.
So it's incurring strategic debt way too early.
Exactly. It's not just technical debt, it's strategic. You're investing in a tangent before the core protocol is absolutely solidified. You're like building an en-suite bathroom before the foundation of the house is even properly set.
So the sovereign decision is a hard no. But it's not just a blunt refusal.
No, it has to be principled, strategic. You articulate why. You explain that the focus is absolute. It's on perfecting that core value prop. You frame it clearly. SSO, that's a winter problem, maybe third turning, maybe fourth. Right now, we are deep in spring.
It's about defending that initial asymmetry of focus, prioritizing the long-term health of the whole product over the short-term satisfaction of one customer, even an important one.
It's radical ownership of the roadmap.
And the first principles analysis here really drives it home. The opportunity cost.
Huge. Every hour, every cycle spent on that early SSO feature is an hour not spent perfecting the core thing that defines your entire product's reason for being.
It's about establishing identity.
Yes, and crucially, preventing the premature buildup of systems friction. All that invisible drag, the extra meetings, the code-based complexity, the conflicting priorities that slows everything down later. You have to avoid accumulating that junk before you've even achieved basic stability.
Yeah, that friction is insidious. It kills agility.
It's the silent killer. So this rigorous no is about intellectual honesty and resource allocation. Every resource must amplify the core signal, not dilute it with noise, building on that pristine, singular vision.
Okay, but products don't stay in Spring forever. That initial, almost monastic focus starts to fray a bit, right? Success brings its own challenges, and that leads us into the second turning, the awakening.
Feature expansion, the summer of your product. The core is stable, it's successful, you've nailed that initial product as protocol, but things are definitely shifting. The market, the team dynamics, the success itself creates new pressures.
The mood changes too, doesn't it? That unified optimism starts to crack a little.
Yeah, you start hearing passionate debates, heated sometimes. But it's not necessarily bad, it's evolution. New user segments, maybe ones you never even thought about in the first turning, start pushing back. They start championing what feels like a rebellion against that elegant but maybe now restrictive one-size-fits-all solution.
And internally, you see factions forming. We need enterprise versus, no, focus on user delight for individuals.
Exactly. And these tensions, they aren't just noise, they're vital signals. Signals of new strategic directions, new markets opening up, unmet user needs bubbling to the surface.
Like Facebook opening up beyond colleges, right? Or introducing the news feed. Huge internal debates, user protests even.
But it unlocked massive growth. It was an awakening to a much broader potential.
So the sovereign PM's role shifts dramatically here. You're not just the rigid protector anymore.
No, you evolve. You become the listener, the diplomat. Your job is to channel that rebellion, those new demands, into productive discovery. Those feature requests you dismissed before. Now they're valuable signals of where new value might lie.
So you're listening deeply, trying to discern the most promising paths for expansion. Not all requests are created equal.
Definitely not. And this is where you start prioritizing things like personalization, customization, integrations. You're consciously building out the operating layer.
Moving beyond the rigid protocol of the first phase.
Right. You're building the infrastructure APIs, hooks, flexible capabilities that lets users adapt the product to their world, their workflows. It signals that the product is ready to expand its reach, maybe become more of a platform, or at least play nicely in a bigger ecosystem.
But that expansion, that flexibility, it creates tension, right? You have to balance protecting the core that got you here with exploring these new, potentially lucrative adjacent areas.
Absolutely. It's a constant balancing act. Strategic choices get really complex now. That pure asymmetry of focus from the first turning, it gives way to a more nuanced, managed expansion. It's not just about saying no anymore. It's about figuring out which yes offers the most strategic leverage.
Okay, let's bring back SSO. Same request, but different context. It's back on the table.
But this time, it's not just one early customer. It's coming from, say, a dozen potential enterprise clients. Big names, big deals, sales is sounding the alarm, maybe investors are asking questions.
The pressure is much higher. It's clearly not just a distraction anymore.
No, it's matured. It's now a legitimate strategic debate. It demands serious, rigorous consideration.
So definitely not an automatic no, but it's not an automatic yes either, right?
Yeah, correct. Your job now is to facilitate that debate. Frame it properly. Use a framework, the source mentions one called POWR, but it could be any solid first principles evaluation to ask the critical question.
Is the strategic payoff here unlocking the enterprise market, the revenue, the validation, worth the very significant investment in time, resources, energy, complexity right now?
Exactly. You're moving from that tactical no to a conscious strategic choice. You are meticulously weighing the signal, the clear enterprise demand against the inevitable systems friction that implementing it will introduce. What's the cost, really?
So from first principles, this is where the psychology of an expanding user base gets interesting. Maslow's hierarchy for products, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. First turning is basic needs, core utility. Second turning, users want self-actualization. They want the product to bend to their world, their org structure, their identity.
And that shift from a homogeneous early adopter group to diverse, sometimes conflicting segments. It means you're building a system now, not just features. A system that has to absorb different needs without breaking.
Right. And this is also where strategic debt becomes, well, not just unavoidable, but potentially a conscious trade-off.
Unlike the first turning where you avoided it like the plague.
Exactly. Here, a carefully considered feature for a crucial new segment might absolutely incur technical debt, but maybe it unlocks huge market share or strategic positioning. The key is doing it consciously, understanding the cost, logging it, planning to pay it back eventually, not just letting it pile up unnoticed.
The asymmetry shifts from pure focus to selective expansion, and the PM becomes a sort of firewall.
Yeah, I like that. A firewall protecting the core while intelligently, cautiously enabling specific new avenues. You're making deliberate, high-stakes choices about which fires to light and which ones to keep contained.
Which inevitably leads us, as the product keeps growing and accumulating these choices, into the third turning, the unraveling.
Maturity and fragmentation. The autumn of your product.
Yeah.
You're not the nimble startup anymore. You're mature, powerful, probably very profitable, a market leader even. But that success has brought complexity, fragmentation.
And the internal mood shifts again.
Starkly. That optimism of the high, the passionate debates of the awakening, now you often see cynicism creeping in, what the source calls institutional decay.
The product feels bloated,
Right.
unwieldy, like Microsoft Office was maybe in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Dominant, huge cash cow, but slow, complex, hard to innovate on. Vulnerable.
Exactly. And different user segments are now pulling the product in totally opposite directions. That creates enormous internal systems friction. The org is bigger, more siloed, often disconnected from that original founding vision.
That pristine signaling layer from the first turning is now just cluttered. Noise, conflicting messages, legacy cruft everywhere. The weight of past decisions really starts to bite.
It really does.
So for the sovereign PM in this phase, the job changes again. Radically.
Yeah, you become more like a hardened strategist, a meticulous portfolio manager. Your number one priority, aggressively pay down tech debt.
Because that institutional decay in the code base, the systems friction, it's not just annoying anymore, it's existential.
It's the primary enemy now. It threatens to grind development to a halt. It makes you unable to respond to the market, to competitors. You absolutely have to confront the consequences of past strategic debt, even debt you took on consciously in the second turning. Payback time.
And external.
You have to defend aggressively against the unbundlers. This is when nimble startups pop up and do one specific thing your bloated product does, but they do it way better, faster, cleaner.
So you have to reinforce your firewall, defend your crown jewels, the core use cases where your product as protocol still delivers unique value.
Double down on what still makes you essential.
And you have to embrace segmentation radically.
Yes.
Accept it. Intellectually, operationally, you cannot be everything to everyone anymore. Your resources, even if you're big, are finite. The asymmetry of user needs is now undeniable, deeply entrenched.
So focus your efforts, your remaining agility on your most valuable customer segments, even if it means consciously saying goodbye to others. It's a strategic retreat, in a way. Fortify your strongest positions, reduce the attack surface, ensure you keep serving the users who generate the most value and loyalty.
Okay, SSO example, third turning context. What's its role now?
It's totally transformed. It's no longer a strategic debate, definitely not optional. It is now, quite simply, a cost of doing business. Defensive necessity.
Its absence isn't just an inconvenience, it's actively hurting you. Costing deals, market share, reputation, blocking your biggest enterprise customers.
Exactly. Its strategic role has shifted entirely. It's not about innovation or growth anymore. It's about protection, parity, preventing erosion.
So the sovereign decision is treat it like plumbing, like a utility.
Precisely. It's not exciting. It's not a differentiator like it might have seemed in the second turning. It's critical infrastructure. It gets prioritized, not because it's cool, but because not having it causes unacceptable harm.
It really shows that shift in the operating layer from growth to defense, maintenance, shoring up the foundations because cracks are showing.
Yeah. And from a first principles view, the big challenge here is just signal over noise. How do you find the true signal when the product is so bloated, so burdened by legacy, serving so many different users with conflicting needs?
The economics change too, right? Maintaining dominance versus aggressive expansion.
Absolutely. You shift towards maximizing value from existing assets, finding efficiencies, defending your turf. Less about chasing every new shiny object. And the PM has to manage not just the complex tech, the operating layer, but also the complex politics of resource allocation in a big fragmented organization.
It's less about building from scratch, more about pruning the garden. Orchestrating, optimizing.
A vast, complex garden, It requires a very different kind of strategic mind.
Which brings us, inevitably perhaps, to the final, often brutal phase, the fourth turning, the crisis.
Reinvention or decline, the deep winter. The old model is just broken, demonstrably. You're facing an existential threat. Could be disruption, could be market irrelevance, could just be the crushing weight of your own internal complexity.
This is where all that accumulated strategic debt from previous turnings can become truly terminal. It threatens to sink the whole ship.
The mood is grim, urgency, danger, maybe despair. But also, sometimes, stark clarity. There's a widespread recognition that survival itself is on the line. Hard choices are completely unavoidable now.
Think Microsoft before Satya Nadella, Windows losing to mobile, Office getting hammered by Google Apps. The crisis was real, existential.
And Nadella's cloud-first, mobile-first strategy, textbook fourth-turning pivot, a radical refounding, acknowledging the brutal reality, shedding sacred cows like Windows dominance. It took immense courage.
So the sovereign PM in this deep winter, your role transforms again. Wartime general, radical reformer.
Both. Your absolute #1 job. Confront the brutal reality. You have to be the one to stand up and say, this path leads to failure unequivocally.
Even if it's deeply unpopular, painful.
Especially then. It requires extreme intellectual honesty, radical ownership of the product's fate. You cannot blink.
And that confrontation, that honesty, it leads to the need to lead the refounding.
Yes. This is the moment for that bold, maybe terrifying strategic pivot. It often means killing features people love but that are now liabilities, sunsetting whole product lines, dismantling things that were once successful.
To rally the team around a new, drastically simplified core mission for the next era.
You're essentially redefining the product as protocol from the ground up. Building from the rubble, shedding the legacy that's choking you, establishing a new, leaner, more agile operating layer to power whatever comes next.
It's deconstruction for reconstruction.
Exactly. But sometimes reinvention just isn't on the cards. The crisis is too deep, the debt too high, the market's just gone.
Yeah, that's the grim reality sometimes.
In those cases, the sovereign PM's job shifts again to managing the graceful decline, ending the product's life with dignity, migrating customers carefully, protecting data, and crucially, strategically freeing up those resources, the people, the budget, the focus for the next big bet. Hopefully a new first turning for the company.
That takes incredible detachment, focusing on the org's long-term health over sentiment for your own creation.
It does, making the tough calls to decommission.
So the SSO example. What's the irony here in the fourth turning?
The irony is profound. That old monolithic SSO system you built, the one that became a defensive necessity in the third turning, it might now be a core part of the problem.
How so?
It's so deeply baked into the legacy architecture, so tangled up with everything that it physically prevents you from making the necessary pivot, maybe to microservices, to the cloud, whatever the future demands. It's become this massive source of systems friction, a Gordian knot.
Paradoxically, it's become a new crippling form of strategic debt, holding the whole product hostage.
Exactly. It's not a solution anymore. It's the bars of the cage.
So the strategic reframing now is this once critical thing is a potential liability to be replaced.
Right. And your ultimate sovereign decision in this phase might be the incredibly painful, complex project of killing and replacing that entire old SSO system, not tweaking it, ripping it out.
To enable the next first turning.
Yeah.
A refounding that needs a clean slate.
It's the ultimate act of strategic leadership, really. Redefining the entire operating layer so the future has somewhere to stand.
Wow. Okay, so from first principles, this phase is all about extreme asymmetry of risk, isn't it?
Totally. You're making incredibly hard calls. Huge potential downside if you're wrong, but maybe even bigger downside if you do nothing. This is where praxeology, understanding human action under uncertainty, becomes critical. You need to grasp the motivations, the resistance, the paths for action in a crisis.
The leader's job isn't just to challenge the status quo they probably helped to build,
but to inspire a completely new vision in the face of existential threat. And that refounding, it fundamentally resets the signaling layer for the whole organization. It broadcasts a new direction, new identity, new values for the next cycle.
Looking back then, this whole framework, it's not just descriptive, is it? It really provides that strategic clarity. When you map the turning, the product phase, the PM role, even how something like SSO changes meaning, it all aligns.
It's not a coincidence, it's a pattern. And having that common language, from the board down to the engineers, it's invaluable. It helps everyone understand the deeper forces at play and, crucially, apply the right strategy at the right time.
It really feels like it elevates the PM role from just managing feature requests and backlogs
to proactive, system-level strategic leadership. Moving beyond managing the roadmap to truly understanding the product's trajectory, its lifeblood, its inevitable seasons.
So the core takeaway, the big insight here is product life cycles aren't random. They're cyclical. They're predictable patterns. And understanding these turnings is the key.
It's the key to anticipatory leadership, not reactive leadership. It lets you turn what feel like overwhelming org dynamics or politics into actual levers for strategic action, for growth, for renewal, for refounding.
Okay, so the question for you, the listener, is this. Take a really hard, honest look at your product, your team's mood right now, the market winds. Which turning are you really in?
And based on that, what radical ownership does that specific phase demand from you right now? Are you getting ready for the next season? Or are you still fighting the battles of the last one?
A new operating system for product leaders. For more deep dives into systems-level product leadership, find us wherever you get your insights.
And that brings us to the end of this debrief. Our goal is to give you not just ideas, but a more powerful way to think. If you found value in this discussion, the best way to support this work is to give this episode a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future session. And if you know a fellow product leader who is wrestling with these same challenges, feel free to share this episode with them. As always, you can find the link to the original, in-depth article by Karsten Schwarzkopf directly in the description below. Thank you for your time and your attention. Stay sovereign.